Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant. Here is a compilation of one of the ongoing plot lines of my fan fictions that are used to explore and demonstrate the setting of Warhammer 40k, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. Many an entry is the result of a vote, as I will leave them on a cliffhanger, and then get the gentle listeners to forge the narrative by voting in the comments, so they can control the direction and events of the story. So if you enjoy any of these stories, then do watch the weekly entries on the guides, and prepare to exert your own influence and vote on the storylines. Now, I very much hope you enjoy the following compilation. I have not had such a luminous guest on my ship for quite some time. I have an idea of what he is about to say, but one can never tell with this particular stripe of Inquisitor, Ordo Hereticus. They have a distinctly single-minded way of looking at things, as do all Inquisitors. But they never link the dots. They never understand the widespread repercussions of their actions. It comes from specializing in one discipline too much. It becomes all-consuming. So many of our brethren Astartes do the same. They fall into the trap of being exceptional at one discipline. So they lose track of the need to be competent at all. Flexibility, a strength unto itself. He sits there with his face raised and his nose wrinkled, like being here offends his sensibilities. His nose most of all, it seems, but with a hawk-like beak like that, it is no wonder it is the most pronounced of his senses. I stare passively, waiting for him to shatter the silence. He is used to others breaking under his gaze and babbling out their greatest secrets. Inquisitors. Only human. He goes tired of the standoff. His excitement to cut to the chase is almost crackling off him like lightning. Thank you for your time, Captain. I know you Dark Angels are so very, very busy. Always skulking about and so rarely with a recorded presence. Like shadows. Let's save some time, shall we, Inquisitor? You have a whole galaxy of old women and simpletons to put to the question, then burn, slapping yourself on the back all of the way at how you have single-handedly saved an imperium that has lasted millennia before you were born and will survive millennia after your life has run its course. There we have it, the Dark Angel sneer. You Astartes think you are so much better than the rest of us mere mortals. I have seen things you would not believe. You overblown tin pot, get to the point. Why are you here? I thought it important to let you know before I take my findings to the High Council. What exactly, little man? He takes out his pick, places it daintily on my desk and slides it across to me. I know what I will see. The image contains scenes of a gaggle of tainted traitors all wearing power armor. My gorge rises as I see the element he has so clearly enhanced for my viewing pleasure, a marine in green armor, a Dark Angel by his markings, one of the fallen. Cat got your tongue. I push back the picked caster and stare at him, at the smug smirk nestled under his beak. I have long held suspicions that you Astartes are not to be trusted. You are power-armoured cannon fodder. Your myth, especially that of the mighty fighting first, is built on lies. Now I see that your oh-so-vaunted purity is an utter baseless fable. I rise from my chair and slowly pad towards the door. I am taking my surroundings, like I'm choosing my words carefully. So, you have a blurry pick and an axe to grind. Why should this concern me? It is the evidence that I have long yearned for. The evidence that you Dark Angels are up to no good, as they say. I came merely to see the look in your eyes. So little shock, so little rage. Nothing. Now that I've seen it, I am quite sure that you were aware that this may be discovered. Time to find out a bit more, I think. I suppose you have already informed your colleagues that our downfall is imminent, and your speech to the Order is a mere formality. I pick up a small object, a medal. I project that I am looking at the fate of our glorious legion, my brothers of all Dark Angels chapters being thrown into the mud, as I walk past him, calmly, slowly. He stays silent. Time to make certain. You know that the legend of the Dark Angels is sacrosanct. The entire Imperium, every man, woman and child looks to our deeds, our honor, our sacrifice, our legend. They look, and no matter how bad things may seem, no matter how hopeless, they believe in us. They believe in the First. They believe we are the Dark Angels of Wrath that are sent by the Emperor himself to save them. It buoys them up, it gives them hope. Would you throw that away so easily? Is it worth it over one picked Inquisitor? Don't lecture me, Captain. The Imperium will survive, it will become stronger, because it will be built on truth. Better to cut the infection now than allow it to spoil the entire well. I came to be certain, which I now am. I will take my leave and report to my colleagues when I tell them it is inevitable. Your days are done. So, you are going for the big reveal, your moment in the sun. Is the morale of the Imperium's fighting men and citizenry worth this? I ask you to reconsider. He leaps to his feet, standing to give a very well-rehearsed speech, but he does not turn. You can see the pics flashing around him in his mind's eye. Feeble egotists. No! You will be brought to justice, all of you. When I drop this bombshell, it will be the crowning glory of my career. They will say forevermore that it was I who took down an entire chapter, an entire legion of traitors, that I, Cassius I look at the lifeless body slumped on my desk. He did not hear me creep up behind him. Some always believe that big means slow and heavy. He did not notice my hands were on his head and shoulder until it was too late. I will now have to execute his entourage and dispose of his ship. I would say it is a waste, but from his opinions I feel that I've done the Imperium a great service today. I will drink to him though, for he has brought to my attention one of the fallen. It has been some time. I prepare myself to commune with the inner circle of the Council. I will need support. The sector from the Pict is rife with traitors. I will need the aid of my brothers to do this efficiently, cleanly, and swiftly. Months. It has taken months, but now we are ready. It is about to begin. Long have my brothers and I sat on this ship, sound at a minimum, quietly sliding through space on our velocity alone. Nothing but the most basic of life support. It has allowed me to drill the men thoroughly. We are ready, as we always are, but this must work seamlessly. It must work without a single error. We will not be swayed from our course, our target. One may look at what we are doing and say it is a waste of resources, but it is not. As I stated to the Inquisitor, our legend is more important than anything, as it keeps the entire Imperium afloat, keeps it together, allows the beleaguered world's populations and the fighting forces of humanity to remain keen, thinking maybe if they hold on longer, we, the Dark Angels, will save them. We don't always, but often enough we do. Plus, these scum do indeed need to be winkled out from this system. It was not the highest priority before, as it is a smaller renegade fleet, but while we are here we will sweep house. We will purge these scum in the name of the Emperor. The commander of this vessel is well briefed. Nothing shall go wrong. As I stand in a comms section adjacent to the teleportarum, I look at our trajectory and the time and date stamp. We are only seconds away. I am calm. I clear my mind before the combat. Panic, frenzy, rage, and other emotions. Ha! They are for the later legions and their chapters. We are Dark Angels. We were built for this. We do not do it because we enjoy it. We do not do it because we are filled with zeal of the religious, for we adhere to the imperial truth. We do it because it is our job. It is why we exist. I watch the time counter as we approach the enemy fleet. There must be 24 ships awaiting us, but only 3 cruisers. No battle barges. The rest are frigates and escorts. We are, on paper, outnumbered. But for months we have ploughed toward them on velocity alone, silently, stealthily, taking a tactic straight from the playbook of the Alpha Legion, ironic and effective, to turn the weapons and tactics of the enemy back on them. Satisfying. It is time.
This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a drill.
I flick one switch, indicating to the commander to begin. Outside in the colder space, 1,000 flares explode in quick succession, filling the night with light. We have all been dropping them since we set off, at regular intervals to create the maximum effect. The Auspex scanners of the Renegade fleet will be blind for up to a minute after this. Plenty of time for us to get in amongst them. Immediately, there is a shuddering in the ship and lights come on all around me as the main engines fire up. I see the Deathwing Knights standing in the corridor awaiting my signal to enter the teleportarum. They are ready. The battle begins. As soon as our Auspex is up, I can see the others, a full battle barge each, from my brothers of the successor chapters, the Angels of Redemption, Angels of Wrath, and Persecutors of Darkness. Each one commanded by a chapter master, no less. If it were any other situation, I would take orders from them, but we are hunting a fallen, so I hold command, as I am a Dark Angel chapter captain, and higher in the inner circle. 4 of us against 24 of them, but we will be in amongst them, and they are blind. The commander then launches the 2 sets of discharges I instructed. One containing drop pods towards the surface of the planet, the other to discharge boarding missiles at the Renegade's flagship and other cruisers. The Auspex plots the path of the pods and shows them entering the atmosphere with their support craft, all in black. The Ravenwing will prepare the way. I also note that the other ships of our meager force have launched their boarding missiles into the other cruisers, as we agreed. Soon Dark Angels and their brother successor Astartes will be ranging the decks and corridors of the enemy fleet, causing pandemonium, fighting their way to the bridges and engine rooms. The renegades won't have time to know what hit them. But the Auspex shows me that there is some talent in our adversaries as fire starts arcing towards our ship. It is feeble. Despite our void shields being down for a very specific reason, it will do no more than scuff our paint. At this range, our firepower pops escorts like pimples. They turn and attempt to flee, reducing the fire coming in to this old warhorse. We need only weather a minute or two to allow the Ravenwing to do their job, to get near the central encampment where the traitor is being feted as a salubrious guest, no doubt. Moments pass, but the light swiftly shines. They have dropped the teleport beacon. I signal to the commander that I am leaving and march the few steps to the teleport arm surrounded by 5 Deathwing Knights. Our ancient and hallowed tactical dreadnought Terminator armor is slow and heavy, but we have trained for decades in how to use it. We leave. Appearing on the planet, it is as it should be. All is ablaze, and craters and bodies litter the traitor camp. The Ravenwing fly above us in jets and speeders, the roar of their bikes a distant thing as they harry and confuse the enemy, allowing us our window. A machine gun nest fires down on us, its slugger shot bouncing off our Terminator armor and large storm shields without any effect. The nest is silenced by a passing Vengeance land speeder. The Ravenwing do not disappoint. We are directly before the main building in this travesty of a camp. Why they were here, I don't even care. The Knights take point and charge the building. I fire a few Stormbolter shots and see them blow chunks off the wall. It is weak. The Knights now accelerate and I follow them. We plough straight into the wall and burst straight through it. The Knights make short work of anything inside. Their flails wielded with discipline, they smash aside the smaller and less armoured traitor Astartes in front of us. They fly like rag dolls or crumple like paper structures. We move into the heart of the facility. The last door is torn down, and the last 2 figures remain. A Chaos Lord stands in the fore, his axe perpetually dripping an ocean of blood. I leave him to the Knights. I snap my arm up and fire my Stormbolter at the other figure. His green armor explodes on his right side as his arm is torn off from his body and he is thrown back. I have crippled him, for certain, but I will have my prey. He is Astartes. He will not die of this before the Knights have crushed this Chaos Lord and cleared the path to the body. I look forward to passing him into the keeping of the chaplain. He is ours. One more stain to be removed from our honor. One more step towards redemption. Into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war. That is what we say. As the sun sets, I stand on the battlements, and I watch for the first sign. I do not wait long. They crest the horizon, the darkness of night ablaze with their advent. They all carry torches, burning bundles of wood. It lights the night like a snake of fire as they rush toward us. The orc column will be here within the hour. The snake of light, of fire, reminds me. It reminds me of the trenches of lava flows that come from the volcanoes of my homeworld, Nocturne. It reminds me of why I am fighting. It reminds me of my forge, my place, my kith, my kin. It reminds me of a joyous day. They had waited. They think I do them honor, but it is I who is honored. I walk into their home, the home of the sons of my father, the daughters of my mother. Though this has not literally been true for hundreds of years, they still request my presence, for we are family. Most of our cousins, the other Astartes, do not know this warmth, do not permit their number to retain these ties. They know not what they sacrifice, for they sacrifice purpose. I stoop to pass the door. I wear not my panoply of war, my armor, my weapons. I wear my robes, the robes of the cult of Prometheus. Yet, despite my similar attire, we do not look alike. I tower over all, yet none flinch or retreat from my presence. I am met with reverent bows out of respect, but all the faces that raise to meet my eye are adorned with the glory of light, of smiles. The warmth of family beams from them. It bathes me. It heals me. It makes me stronger than any of my cousins can fathom. They lose so much. They never have this. The ritual is short. I fear that it is almost being rushed, yet I know why. It is the mighty lungs of the newest fire in our hearth, the new life for which we gather here to give thanks, to welcome into our family. He is strong. The smile is wide from all, but there is also a mild twitch. His endurance is good. He is loud and tenacious in signaling his displeasure. He shouts like a warrior born, crying his loudest at their disruption to his quiet, at being passed from one to another, so they may look in his eyes. I try not to smile, as I must play my part. And hence is he passed to me. My hands engulf him like a mountain swallows a careless climber. He is large for his age. I raise him up to me to look in his eyes as our family ritual demands. All look on now, but with a hushed awe, as the child looks into my eyes and stops. His tears cease, and his features take on a calmness I can only recognize when I look in a mirror. He reaches for my finger and squeezes it, and then, like a blessing that washes away the awe on each face and replaces it with the heat of love, the smiles are infectious, as the tiny bell of his laugh chimes throughout this gathering place. But he is as ardent in his joy as he was in his previous consternation, all began to laugh. Even me. But then I notice it, when he closes his eyes and opens them. For a fleeting second, I saw a tinge of red. An omen. I do not believe in such things usually, but it all adds up. He snuggles into my hands and begins to drop off. But I saw it. Now I must do something I have not done in 3 generations of my family. Usually, I would process toward the mother. I would pass back the child, as I have done so many times. I would say nothing, and they would know I had given my blessing, had accepted the child into our family, but not so today. I stride, making a course between them at first, but at the last I move toward the father. All now look on in silence, in awe again. It has been so long. I approach the father. His eyes now wide as he looks up at me. In his shock, he almost forgets to open his arms to accept back his son. As I bend down to pass this most precious treasure back to his sire, I speak the words our family have always used, the words that were said when I was passed back to my own father so many years ago. I speak. His soul is strong, perhaps strong enough for 2 hearts. The father nods and looks into his son's face with a newfound reverence. The mother's eyes tear up, a mixture of fear and pride in equal measure, as she moves to her husband's side to bask in the vision of her now slumbering son. Perhaps she fears, but when she looks up at me, she pretends the tears are ones of pride and joy. I will never know for certain if she pretends or no. I am only a man. For I have told them what I saw. Maybe he will be strong enough to pass the trials. Maybe he will be strong enough, determined enough, brave enough to join my order, to be a son of Vulcan, to be a salamander. My eyes open again, and the greenskins are almost here. I check my bolter. I check the flamer at my feet, for the number that approaches means that no matter how fast we fire, no matter how accurately, hit our lines they will, for they are many, and we are few. But I swear to myself, as I always do. I look to the village behind and below me, and I swear, none shall pass my watch. For I stand between the greenskins, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. Though this village be light years from my home, though they knew me not but scant hours ago, they will never know or remember my name. These are my people, all of them. They are humans. They are brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. We are the same. Were the entire Xenos race to attempt to come crashing down on our lines, we will not break. For we are sons of Nocturne. We are the sons of Vulcan. We are the sons of the Emperor. But more than anything, even than that, we are sons of humanity. As I stand in this place, I hear again that chime, that little bell, the laughter of the youngest of my family. For him, no greenskin will pass me this night. Dakalun Nuduvu was a veteran of the Salamanders and many a Space Hulk Scouring, stalking the decks of the Hulk as quietly as he could. In Terminator armor, this was no mean feat. Silent, no, but not loud. He found himself in a truly ancient section of the Hulk, a ship that must have dated from the dark age of technology or even before. Impossibly, he saw a glaring light at one console and touched the screen, and it came alive. Utterly bemused at this message from another time, another place, Dakalun stalked on. His proximity detector went wild and saw a cluster of gene stealers moving at him fast. He grinned as he prepared his heavy flamer. It was the perfect weapon for fighting in a Hulk, or any tight-packed and confined position. None could pass it. But more than this, as the gene stealers tore around the corner and clawed their way towards him, he showed them the true worth of the weapon. As gouts of flame like sheets erupted from its nozzle, it doused and covered the first three to leap at him. All writhed as they were consumed. Those stealers behind could not charge him due to their burning brethren. Dakalun Naluvu smiled again. He fired more gouts of flame and then took the initiative and trudged into the fire to assault the gene stealers behind. He was in Terminator armor. The flames could not harm him, an advantage he intended to play to the full. These stealers were toast. They just didn't know it yet. None can see me. I am one with the shadows. I am one with the dark. I am one with my brothers. Despite the distance between us, we act as one body, one mind, one purpose. I stand atop a spire, preparing myself. The lights in the palace are bright. They dazzle all around, hiding me further. It nears the time I will strike. I can feel it. Like a shadow within a shadow, I am hidden, but I do not feel alone. I can almost feel my fallen brethren with me, guiding me. All of the Ravenguard who have ever existed before, they watch me, they help me. I am never alone. The grand doors are finally opened and the attendees of this luxurious ball begin to dribble out of the palace. I watch. I wait. I watch. I wait. My mark, the one assigned to me alone, processes down the many large stairs of the palace with an entourage of guards. They are well trained, and coverage of their lord is tight. A shot would be difficult in the extreme, as they are disposed. They believe he is untouchable. But tonight he will pay for his actions, his treachery. He is mine. I set the signal going, and my brothers across the city signal that they too are ready. My foot depresses very smoothly on the detonator, and the world explodes into light and fire and sound. Charges I had set across the courtyard nights before now roar into life, and rubble is blasted above, around, and below them. His men are shaken, and the formation is disrupted for a mere moment, as they react as all humans do to explosions, and crouch just that little bit. I take my opportunity. The bullet flies true, and embeds itself in the brow of my target. He does not reach the ground unattended, his nearest guard grabbing him as he falls, only to see the red dot between the eyes and to know that he has failed. So let it be with all traitors. We shall come for you when you feel yourself most safe. None are protected if they turn from the Emperor's light. None. I stalk through the night, the shadows, rappelling halfway down the spire to the allotted and agreed position. I am met less than a minute later by the land speeder. As it floats up to me, I jump inside and see the rest of my squad. Our lighter armor quiet, our jobs completed in this place, we head towards the next target. We silently skim over the city toward the place they believe strong, the place they think they are invulnerable. My brothers and I take up more positions atop the spires, always looking down, always wary. The guard is changing as we see they have been informed of the events at the palace. They rush about in disorder, scrambling to open top transports to be taken to key locations within the city, expecting this to be a prelude to a conventional assault. My squad and I act as one again. Our sniping rifles raised and aimed with precision, we shoot out the designated targets while our brethren in the assault squads prepare to fall on them like a murder of crows. The drivers of a half-dozen transports are dealt with, and the collisions of their vehicles with walls and lampposts send scores of their men spilling out at speed across the thoroughfares, blocking them utterly. They are trapped. They are trapped and confused when our brothers fall amongst them. Lightning claws are deployed to lethal effect as the enemy fall like wheat before the thresher. We were done here in 12.3 minutes, and then progress to our third target. We sow chaos to prevent the greater chaos and horror of a protracted and bloody war. It is a mercy as much as an expedient. All across this world my brothers have enacted the same toll from these generals and lords who forget their place, who turn their back on the Imperium. In less than an hour of activity, we have cut the head from the military and executive of this population. We do not blame the common man for the failings of their leaders, their slave masters, but they have now been warned. We will progress from here to their most important facilities and take them before the sun rises. This is the price the Emperor asks of us, his Ravenguard. To watch, to wait, to listen, and then to act. We defend the Imperium more than any know. We are the thing that comes from the night. We are the reason so many have remained loyal when they would have been tempted. We are the Emperor's Ravenguard, and from the darkness we bring the Emperor's light. I'm Tyler's Darian, and this is my first operation with an actual heavy weapon in my hand. I am positively aglow. Well, I would be, if it were not for the dread task we have to perform. I stand with my unit, Pluma Nigrum, Black Feather, of the 9th Company. We are supporting the 4th, a true battle company, as they engage the enemy half a mile north of here, amongst the dense buildings of this hive. It goes well, as it should do. This world had been warned, had been told. Still, they stuck to their enlightened ways. They did not suppress the mutants in their midst. They tolerated them and even embraced them. A backwater world, their tolerance had been ignored because none had known of it. Not for thousands of years. They paid their tithe. Nobody asked any questions. So progressive were they here on Simplicitas 3 that they had even allowed their beastmen and mutants to enlist. Remain loyal for thousands of years though they may have done, all knew they would turn, and turn they did. When a local cardinal began a pogrom on Simplicitas 3, it all kicked off. The cardinal, in his fervour, was appalled at the existence of the mutants and beastmen, and called for a full cull, very loudly and very publicly, and all while not knowing the history of the planet. How could he? So entire regiments of the cursed instantly rebelled, moving from conurbation to conurbation, hacking and burning all the normal humans they could find. Every hive burned. Blood ran in the streets. So on our way to an active war zone, we, elements of the 4th, 9th and 8th Companies of the Ravenguard, answered the call. We moved swiftly and scourged the mutants with zeal. And so here we are. The back of the resistance now smashed, herded and collected into one place. This hive is where they make their last stand, to the north. But they are not idiots. Despite being cursed with unclean flesh, they cut off an armoured column, their last, and swung it around to the southwest to try to flank our main force. And they're coming, right where I am waiting. The lead tanks are Lehman Russ, but most of those behind are chimeras, troop transports, armoured personnel carriers, full to the brim with mutants and beastmen. Carrying Cade, my brother of Plumer, awaits them on the ground with a few other brothers armed with bolters. He stands with his gravitic weapon. As the first tank passes the alley where he lurks, a wave of energy comes out and strikes it. In mere seconds, the entire construct is sucked in on itself, as if a black hole had opened in its interior. The screeding of metal cuts through the air as it literally implodes, sprays of blood from its occupant squirting out as it becomes a tenth of its previous size. Estevisebtin and Astis Kol open up with their las cannons. We are in an elevated position on separate floors of a block the death tank column we're about to pass. Las fire burns the air as the light from them punches into the fronts of the vehicles, starting from those at the very back of the column, while Kyrin moves down the line from the front, crushing vehicle after vehicle, and Estevi and Astis move from the back. More and more mutants dive out of the burning vehicles. This is where I come in. I have the missile launcher. I rain down frag missiles into those attempting to escape the trap. As my missiles land with pinpoint accuracy, they explode in the midst of the massed mutant ranks and tear them to pieces with flesh heads. Added to this are the shots of the bolters from the rest of the squad, finishing off those only crippled or maimed by the fragmentations. Within 2 minutes, we cease firing. All is smoke and crackling engines, but there are no wails or cries anymore. Our job has been done. Now the Shadow Captain can sweep around the mutants' flank himself and roll them up. We should be extracted within 6 hours from this world. Maximum. Some say there are as many threats to the Imperium, as many types of Xenos, as there are stars in the sky. Some are like huge bugs. Some are skeletal living metal monstrosities. Some the lithe and nimble degenerate Eldar. Some are psychers of astonishing strength that can dominate entire worlds and systems. I don't know much about all of those. Each chapter, each sector, has its own aquila to bear, I guess. Here, in our region, we have the greenskins. Like an ocean they come, and each time we beat them down, we beat them back. But there are always more of them. They breed like mushrooms in a dank cave, it seems. I respect the greenskin. As soon as you underestimate a foe, you lose to it. So I always keep a healthy respect for them. Of all the Xenos slime, I have had the experience of bringing the Emperor's peace. The greenskin is so very different. They seem to have no fear of death. They seem to love fighting more than anything I have ever seen. Even the Templars. They're also weird. Anything else? A headshot does the business, and after shaving 0.002 off my bolter drill time and being one of the best shots in the company, no mean feat I can tell you, I know my business. But with the greenskins, it's best to shoot them in the body. The bolter hits and blows the thing into an eruption of green mess. Headshots? You may not believe me, but they sometimes get back up after them. Not immediately, but I have seen it. A greenskin can have a head stitched back onto a body by their weird apothecaries and then get back up. So I hit the body and make certain. We know how to deal with orcs though. The mad dash forward, the unending waves of them. They can never resist a good scrap. So I stand on a hill surrounded by my squad. We make ourselves plain, and they come as intended. And there goes that mad bellow of theirs. War, I think they are saying. Like it's dinner time at a starving hive. So strange. The word is given by our sergeant, Mordian Makarov, and I take aim and start to fire along with my squad. The bolter drill was worth it. It always is. We are sons of dawn after all. We hit our target first time, every time. They fall in their droves. Anything else would turn tail and run from the punishment we are meting out. But they love it. So strange. They surround us. We are a tiny island of power armor amongst a tide of green. They crash into our lines, but we are ready. We may not be the Black Templars, who would actually just charge them back, but we know our trade. My chainsword is in hand and I go to work. My sergeant strikes out all around him with his power fist, and the red of our namesake, so powerful in his hands that orcs fly into the air like he is juggling them. We stand our ground. We are the bait, you see. In less than a minute or two, our brothers will reveal themselves from their hidden positions, and will then unleash the Emperor's own wrath into this tide of scum. All I have to do is stand my ground. But I am an Astartes, a Space Marine. I am a son of Dawn, and I am a Crimson Fist. Even if there were 1,000,000 of them charging us, I will stand my ground. Melter weapons. The smoke-filled air choked all with the courage or stupidity to venture outside. For the hive world burned, every city, every erection within it. Trails of smoke and flame rose to the skies, creating a shadowed twilight existence for all. The forces of chaos seemed unstoppable, their numbers almost infinite, their weaponry and material beyond any hope of resistance. The planetary defense forces had been swept away like so many wooden toys on a regicide board. And this was almost universally true. In only one place was their reign of tyranny and blood halted, resisted. Only one. But it was with a sinking feeling of utter desolation that the last free forces on the planet looked out from their walls and parapets. The enemy were amassing. And nothing could stop them. Or so they thought. Three transports came hurtling out of the skies towards Cartagia Hive, the battered and partial shielding erected in a flash, the anti-aircraft emplacements whirling into life, like sunflowers turning their faces to the glorious dawn, each raised up and pointed towards the oncoming vehicles. At the very last instant, a communication came down from the trio of storm ravens, and a moment later, only in the very nick of time, did the guns cease their tracking. Close. But it was their way, to be in the nick of time, to only disclose the necessary, and only the minimum information required to boot. The three vessels tore down through the atmosphere so quickly that few would ever have noticed them, certainly none from a distance, the smoke still billowing from the hive as it did. Coming down towards the central square before the palace of the governor, the vehicles did not even touch down properly. They hovered for a few seconds only, as 1.5 score of heavily armoured space marines leapt out of open hatches down to the ground. And within heartbeats, the ravens were back in the air, heading upwards back to something in space, something in orbit. The Adeptus Astartes were here, the Emperor's own angels of death, and not just any marines, his mighty iron hands. The officer, a lieutenant by his markings, gesticulated and his men fanned out, heading for the most vulnerable positions in the walls, but most of them, it would seem, towards the gate. The governor, unprepared for such visitors, was some time in his arrival, having drunk himself into a stupor and preparing to give his entire family the gift of the Emperor's peace. He was not roused easily, but he was roused. But by the time he was even semi-presentable, the Astartes had disappeared into the hive. With all of the speed that he could muster by lashing and screaming at his poor carriers, the governor's palanquin made its way to the last known position of the Marines, the main gates. But there he found he was utterly ignored. Stepping out and barely supporting his huge girth on his underused legs, he stood watching as the Marines took up their positions. Only one word resounded around his cavernous cranium. So few. His men, now taking orders from the Marines, barked out quickly, and for the first time in his long and overstuffed life, he was superfluous to requirement. None even gave him a glance, their awe at the Marines captivating them. or actually responding and obeying the huge warriors as they barked out commands to the pitiful forces that had been about to roll over and die. Not now. Even one Marine made a difference. But now, there were over 20. But they were not as usual Marines, as far as any could tell, not being versed or experienced in the Astartes. They were larger and bulkier than any that these people had seen in Pictor propaganda. The gravis-armored Astartes moved slowly for a Marine, but deliberately, and a trap was about to be sprung. A wave of sound now hit the walls of the hive, the rumbling of huge vehicles making their way across the no-man's land betwixt the enemy lines and the battlements, and it was quickly followed by a barrage that made the shields light up like a sanguinala display. All was explosions, light, fire, and doom, as areas of the shield fell under the onslaught, tearing huge buildings apart, burning ore that they touched with promethium. The devastation was horrific. But it was really all a distraction, to draw forces to firefighting and away from the main assault. What seemed like hours were merely minutes, and the next stage of the battle erupted with such clamour that the governor now wished he had never come. Wished he had drunk his pre-prepared draught of instant painless relief. For there was no way in his mind, not even with the Emperor's own warriors present, that they could hold out against the forces of evil. He felt justified in his apprehension when the massive doors of the hive were smashed apart by the heavy fire of the enemy. Blown off their hinges, one dangling precariously before a myriad of other shells forced it back and into the square head overhead as it slammed into a cathedral at the front of the hive. The smoke and debris still falling all around him, clarity of vision not possible beyond the gate housing itself, when the first of the huge war engines barged through the gap, and its tentacles grabbed the closest men and dashed them against walls, threw them in the air, the hideous monsters crashing and biting men in half as they appeared. But the initial shock was limited, and before he could understand what was happening, the monsters seemed to be melting before his very eyes. As he whipped around, he saw groups of 3 of these huge Primaris warriors. Eradicators, someone had barked at one point, he was sure. They simply walked forward. Under hails of fire, lasgun, bolter and stubber tore towards the Marines, and it seemed as if nothing could survive their ire. But onwards the Iron Hand Marines strode, stubber rounds pinging as they ricocheted off their gravis armour. Bolters hit, but left only dents. Lasguns merely scratched their paint or made it bubble slightly. Nothing could stop them. And they appeared so calm. No shouting, no wild gesticulation, no running, and no ducking. They simply marched onwards, grinding down their enemies, making all before them a mire of melted metal and bones. And this went on for an hour, before it was simply impossible for the attacking force to come within 50 yards of the gap. So many of the monsters, armour and carriers of the traitors had been annihilated. And as one, suddenly, the firing ceased. The Marines now stood, stock still, and looked up. The governor followed their eyes. They had merely been buying time, been holding out. As the governor now saw a huge metal whale-like ship descending into low orbit, blotting out the sun. The governor was forced to his knees by the raising and falling of the ground itself. The shockwaves that hit him, and all anywhere near the gap, as the battle barge of the Iron Hands opened fire on the collected Chaos Army below. The barrage went on for only a few minutes, but when it ended, there was not a man, woman, or beast alive outside on the plains. And the governor could only utter one sentence to convey his awe and terror at what he had witnessed. The Emperor protects. Months. It had been months. Encamped in a circle around the city as we had been since the siege began. The rot of such an existence grinding us down far more effectively than any set-piece battle, any protracted engagement even. Sieges. Horrific affairs for both parties. Being on the outside looking in seemed the better option of the two. But it was not always the case. Sickness and hunger were rife in the camp. We had twice received rations from the wrong supply network, and the effects had been bowel liquefying for most of us. All humans may be the same, but the ecosystem that we had been raised on were different. The wrong rations could cause cramps, diarrhea, and worse. Twice this had happened, and it meant months of disruption as supplies were bought in bulk. Of course they were, but that consigned us to hell. The camp had gone to rack and ruin as the majority of the command staff were no more resistant to the effects than their men. No order, no discipline. We were more a shanty town outside the walls of the hive than a siege army. The commissars had tried to enforce as much discipline as possible, but few were on their feet at any one time. So it was executions across the board. Nobody had the time for a flogging. Certainly not that many. Then, in one day, it ended. All of it. It just ended. Grey-painted Astartes, Space Marines, landing craft zoomed over our camp low one morning. They ploughed through the air, dodging and diving around the flak fire coming up to meet them. The Iron Hands. Holy throne. The Emperor had sent his angels of death. They ran in low and just dropped off their precious cargo in front of the very walls and zoomed off again. Those men inside, if I could even call them men, marched forward. They were like something from a sermon. Unreal, amazing, terrifying. They just walked forward, ever onwards, practically ignoring the fire coming down at them. 2 lines were present, one in front, heads down and trudging. The second line were armed with heavy bolters, other bolters, that fired almost unfathomable deluges at the battlements, killing all who now dared put their heads over the parapet. The return fire went from a torrent to a trickle in less than a minute. They walked slowly in these battle suits that were even larger than their usual power armour. The front rank reached the walls, as we had done so many times before in the early days of the siege, when we were zealous. But they didn't stop. There was a whining and whirring that seemed to echo around the entire valley as they simply walked through the walls. The front rank of the Centurions had huge drills attached to their arms. Nothing stopped them as they dug their way through the walls. I watched and listened all day. The screaming and sounds of battle went on for hours. Hours. They just walked into the city, into the hive, and started to kill. And they didn't stop. And finally, at dusk, the main gate simply opened to us. All of those who were able to walk, well, run, charge, but mostly lurch, made their way forward. We took the city. As out came those same Marines. Not 1 inch of them was not covered in blood and viscera, dust and the signs of destruction and slaughter. They walked out and those landers simply returned, and on they marched, and off into the air they went. Less than 30 of them, without a word to us, not one. They had ended it all. And for the first time in all of it, the entire siege, for the first time, I did not wish to be inside those walls, walking the streets of that city, that hive. I knew that what I would see would make me lose my lunch again. For I knew that they had killed everyone. Levelled every bastille, hardpoint and barracks, crushed any and all who stood against them. And on that day, I knew I would never defy the Emperor. Ever. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. Hope you've enjoyed the story so far and will join us on the weekly entries as a result, and will like and subscribe. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. And so, from both myself and Mrs. B, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.